Damn, baby, what you do to your hair?
Orlando, you like it? It's autumn sunrise.
LeTwain Tate, also known as Ms Sharon, in court Wednesday.
Oh, Lee Twain, aka Ms Sharon. You know, if I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. Very rarely in life will you meet a person in the wrong wig, but their right mind. Also, if you ever meet a person and it looks like they keep their wig on a coat rack, don't trust that wig and don't trust the person wearing it. Wig cocked to the side, mental illness. Believe it or not, several people hit me up about this story. What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world and the most trusted woman on YouTube. Alright, so this being a woman gig just isn't working out for me. You know, I decided to get the Ms Sharon. I did my best, and that's the way I'm sure this person pronounced Sharon was Sharon. And this one is gonna be a dark one, but I did want to make this point, and that's why I'm wearing this wig. This should not be the only difference between male and female. This also should not be the only difference between a creepy man and a trusted woman. And in this story, you're going to see that Ms Sharon was up to no good. And I'm not sure exactly where I'm at on some of the things that I've read, because I've seen people saying that they're being careful not to misgender this person, which I don't really know if we're still buying into the gendering versus misgendering when a person has done the unthinkable, which I'm beginning to think that for some people, the unthinkable is very thinkable, and not only thinkable, but also doable. And I know it looks ridiculous that I'm sitting here in this wig talking to you guys in such a serious way. And I will take it off in a minute, but I just want to really embody the character for a minute. I just pulled it out of the box, so. Could you imagine if I was talking to somebody and I was like, girl? But this one's going to be a dark one, and there's not going to be a lot of room for me to have fun on it. So I figured I'd have a little bit of fun in the beginning. This wig was a little more expensive than it should have been, so drop a super thanks if you have a chance. Feel no obligation. This is my stupidity. But it's also because I did want to make the point that I don't think that this is the thing that makes the difference between a person being a woman and a man, or a trans person and a non-trans person, even for that matter. And what I was getting at with having mixed feelings about the way people are dealing with it, some people think that in no circumstances should you ever trust a trans person or have them in a professional position. And some people feel like you should trust all trans people just because they're trans. And as a person who's had trans friends for my entire adult life, and believe me, it hasn't been a short span, this entire adult life of mine, I can tell you that trans people, true trans people, are like anybody else. But I think there is a reason, because I saw a video where a guy was saying that there was no reason to say that this person was trans.
Why are we talking about transgender?
And that it was because it was Breitbart that he had seen the article on originally. And I saw the article originally on Neighborhood Talk, one of the black blogs. So let's get into the story. But what I was going to say about the black blogs is the black blogs also acknowledged that it was a trans person. And like I said, by the end, I will tell you why I think it was important that they mentioned it. But for now, let me not get too long-winded. Let's get into this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. That's what you can do for me taking the time to buy this luxurious wig that I have no idea what I'm gonna do with now. Maybe I'll do Dream Girls in my spare time.
We are dream girls, boys.
This, though, a former charter school bus driver was in court today accused of multiple crimes against children.
See, and that's what I'm saying. Because if you look at this person, Ms Sharon, LeTwain, I would not want this person driving my children to school every day. I wouldn't even trust this person with my dog. They just have a look to them and those butthole lips. So, no thanks, Ms Sharon. Let me take off my wig. I got my wig snatched, even though I don't plan to keep this wig for anything. LaShonda. Hair's messed up, obviously. But so anyway, Ms Sharon is obviously in big trouble, so let's let them continue.
48-year-old LaTwain Tate will be held on a $1 million bond in jail.
Now, I saw people debating whether or not and trying to pull the innocent until proven guilty, and I get that that's the way our system works, so I'm not trying to deny that that's the truth of this story at the moment. But I would say if they did a months-long investigation and then they went through with the arrest and put $1 million bail on this person, there's a pretty good chance that they did it.
WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre is live outside of the Mecklenburg County Courthouse in Uptown where that hearing took place. Jesse, you were able to speak to Tate's family today. We appreciate their time, but what did they tell you?
Well, yes, that's right. I did speak to Tate's family briefly here at the courthouse and at their home, and they say Tate is innocent.
Can we please be for real? Because if they've done a months-long investigation and this is what they came back with, and then also you probably have the victims corroborating, who's gonna lie and say that they hooked up with Ms Sharon? I do not find this to be likely at all.
I also got a chance to speak to some folks that live in the area where the incident happened, and they say the accusations are alarming.
It's pretty disturbing that it's so close to home.
Now, in these situations, a lot of times I would blame the neighbors and be like, you should have called out that something seemed a little bit off if people that were going to Ms Sharon's house were not looking like they're of age. But the problem is you're in such an awkward situation in this one because there's two things going on. One, you could get called racist, and that's a very real fear that people have, and people will lose their jobs behind racism. So you've got that going on. And like I said, I think that if you ever think that anything's off and you have an opportunity to even drop an anonymous tip, you should. But then there's also the trans factor to it. And if you call the police on a trans person and it turns out not to be a valid call, again, you're going to get canceled. So while I would usually say the neighbor should have tipped somebody off, I can understand how maybe a person wouldn't want to put themselves in that position, especially if they have employment that they're worried about.
LaTwain Tate, also known as Ms Sharon, in court Wednesday, charged with 2 counts of statutory rape, 6 counts of indecent liberties with a minor, and 1 count of statutory sex offense. Police say there are at least 4 victims, boys between the ages of 14 and 15. After weeks-long investigation, Tate was arrested Tuesday.
See, and that's what I'm saying. Boys of 14 and 15, which I would imagine that they've already interviewed, I don't think that they would make up that Ms Sharon did these things. And I read in an article pertaining to this, they were offered money, at least one of them was offered money or given money, and I saw some people judging the child about that. And here's the problem I have with that, is that when you're young like that, a lot of times you are naive enough to think that that's a good trade-off, that somebody giving you some money. I have a friend who was victimized by his older brother, and it was more than one of his brothers. He's very open about it, so I don't mind talking about this on my YouTube, and I'm not going to mention his name just for his privacy, but he's very open about it. He's talked about it on stage before. And he had older brothers, and they had promised him a Game Boy when he was little for them to do some stuff to him. And he went for it, and it messed up. To this day, he's messed up. And at a point, he told his parents, and that was a whole different situation. But I don't ever blame the victim in these kinds of situations, because when you're young, you don't know what's going on. You're a dumb child. You're 14 or 15, and you can't fully wrap your mind around what might come of that kind of situation or the trauma that you may end up dealing with because all you're thinking about is they're going to give me this money, or they promised me this particular thing that I've been wanting. I mean, to be completely honest, and all jokes aside, you wake up next to that as an adult, you're gonna be traumatized. So I can't imagine what the victims must be going through or must have been going through. And Ms. Sharon was also their bus driver. And so Ms. Sharon knew exactly what the ages of these people were that she's dealing with, or they're dealing with. And the only reason I'm even trying to pay attention to pronouns myself and trying to watch myself is because of YouTube, and I don't want to get in trouble. And also, I think there are some important lessons to be learned here, so I hope a fair amount of people end up watching this video, because like I said, you can't just trust anybody and have this blanket, oh, because they're trans, I'm supposed to trust them, or I can never question what their intentions are, or why they're hanging out with these people that are obviously much younger than they are.
My wife told me I was in the house, that she told me that there were cops outside, a lot of undercover cops.
Investigators say several of the boys stayed with Tate and performed sexual acts on Tate at the home.
And on this one, I will have no shame in blaming the parents, because really, why are your children staying in the home of a grown man, any grown man? I don't care that might have been their school bus driver. And if you didn't know where they were staying, how do you not know where your 14 and 15-year-olds are staying? Like, they're not at your house, they're staying with somebody else. For how long were they staying there? I have a lot of questions on that part. And yes, I will be honest, I do blame the parents in this situation.
Folks who live in the area say the entire ordeal is unsettling.
14, 15-year-olds can be so impressionable at that age. And, to think that somebody would take advantage of, kids in that age range, that's just very alarming.
I gotta say, I do agree with them. That is very alarming. But like I said, this is where the parents really should have been paying attention to where their children were hanging out and not trusted Lee Twain, aka Ms. Sharon. I mean, I don't know what you guys are thinking, but when I saw that picture, I was just like, who even trusted this person? I guess you can't really discriminate when hiring, but you could just choose not to hire and not really give a reason. I'm sure there were other applicants. I mean, like, was Lee Twain the only person that could drive a bus in their town? They're in like Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, Sugar Creek or something like that, but it's Charlotte basically. I'm sure there were more people that could have done this job.
Mary Catherine Elkins with Pat's Place Child Advocacy Center says they work with CMPD on investigations like this.
We provide a forensic interview, which is a developmentally appropriate conversation with children to get information from them that's admissible in court.
Elkins says it is important for parents to have regular conversations with their kids about safety and appropriate relationships.
Now, not to be silly, but why is this doll wearing the Ms. Sharon wig?
Elkins says it is important for parents to have regular conversations with their kids about safety and appropriate relationships with adults.
Yeah, appropriate relationships with adults, like not being at their houses. That should be rule number one.
Even with teenagers, they need to be aware that there are boundaries and that they can say no.
Now, police believe there may be more victims out there and asking anyone with information to come forward. Tate's next court hearing is scheduled for October 16.
See, and that's part of the reason that I think it is important that they say that the person is transgender in this situation. Because if there might be more victims out there, and say a person didn't actually get a name, one of the victims didn't actually get a name, or didn't actually end up at their house, but maybe there was some sort of encounter that was kind of random, like the one that I reported on that was the trans person in New York that had met the person in the park and then had their way with them. I'm just watching the way I talk because of YouTube, but had their way with them in like the bathroom of a bodega. Like if there was some random situation like that and somebody didn't come forward at that time, and then they end up catching wind of this and they want to tell their story and make sure that the police know that they are also a victim. That's where I think it's important. I also think it's important when we're doing any kind of description of somebody that's done something. I think we do need all the factors that we can possibly get. Like, that's one of the things that bothers me about political correctness when it comes to race, is that you can't say what race a person is or what color their skin is, but that's part of the description. And so I do think that descriptions are important, and I don't think that that necessarily means that you're villainizing an entire group of people. And while some people will take it that way and it'll support biases that some people may already have, I think that when it comes to especially a situation like this and trying to figure out if there are more victims in something as serious as this, I do think that we should be able to talk about these things in a way that gives up the most information that it could possibly give, and also lets us know what it is we're on the lookout for, or maybe gives potential victims as much information as they would need to be like, oh, I think I did encounter that particular person. But maybe people are right and I'm wrong, and we shouldn't be as descriptive as we possibly can be. But when it comes down to it, I do have to reiterate, I don't think that there should be a blanket either way. And I think that that's probably the most important thing I took from the comments, other than don't blame the victims, especially when they're that young, because they have no concept of what consequences may be as far as them and trauma, or having to deal with things later on in life and thinking things are okay in the moment, but then later on realizing that they weren't okay with it. So that's where I'm at on this one. And like I said, sorry it was so dark, but a lot of people were hitting me up about it, and I felt like it was one that I should at least talk about in some way, especially after seeing the comments. But let me know what you guys think. If you want to see a video of me talking about Keira Knightley and the boycott against J.K. Rowling, click the video on your screen. Other than that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.